Welcome to another episode of Becka's Talking here on the wherever you get your podcast, available at wwt.com and also on Spotify and iHeart and all the other usual places for your audio portion of the podcast. I'm looking forward to today's one because it's a topic I've been fascinated with for a long time, criminal justice. And this man knows a heck of a lot about that. Bob Houston, I want to make sure I get this right now. 37 years with the Nebraska Department of Corrections. Right. You are the former director for the Nebraska Department of Corrections. Right. You are also with Douglas County, head of Douglas County Corrections, right?
Right.
You are a former criminal justice instructor out at UNO.
Right.
And are currently working as a federal court monitor at the LA County Jail in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So you've been involved in criminal justice
for 50 years.
For 50 years.
Yeah.
I guess, okay, first question. What made you want to do this?
Well, I had read about the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice opening up. That was back in the 60s. And it just seemed like a fascinating career. And so before I even went to college, I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
You wanted to be an administrator? Did you start out like as a guard and work your way up, or how does that go?
Yeah, I started as a I graduated, started as a correction officer my senior year, and then when I graduated, I went down to the Nebraska State Penitentiary and then worked in 12 different jobs and made as a deputy director. I was a warden for 11 years, deputy director, and then I was put on loan and then became the permanent director of Douglas County Department of Corrections, and then Governor Heineman appointed me as state director of corrections, and I did that for 8 years.
Now, as you all know, I've done some volunteer work out of the state pen.
Right.
And whenever I get in the yard and I hear that gate slam behind me, my sphincter tightens a little bit. You know, it's like I know I'm getting out, but at the same time, as I go through there, I'm amazed at how many good guys there are. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Well, we have this image of what the prisons are like.
Right.
But there are some people there that I'd have no problem taking to a family dinner. Now, there's other people there that I don't want anywhere near, lock them up for a long, long time.
Right.
But other people there that are just like, some good guys that just did some bad things.
Right.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, most of them are not going to come back. I mean, the recidivism rate in Nebraska is pretty low. From other systems across the country. Mm-hmm. Our incarceration rate is low. I think we're maybe 35 to 40 lowest incarceration rate. We also have, to get to your point about crowding, we also have the lowest number of beds per 100,000 than any other state in the country, which is really something that's not considered when you think about crowding.
Well, yeah, because we talked about our prisons are overcrowded. Matter of fact, I don't know if the lawsuits are still in effect or they're still going on, but the ACLU has sued the state for overcrowded prisons. And you're saying that our incarceration rate is low?
Yeah, the incarceration rate is low. We're just wrong fit for the population we have.
Okay, so what you're saying, percentage-wise for the population of the state of Nebraska, it's low. Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
the people being sentenced to prison is one of the lower rates in the country.
Oh, why is that, do you think?
Well, I think we don't have the huge cities with the deterioration of the inner city. We're rural. We have a low population, and just a lot of factors about Nebraska keeps it low.
Our prisons are overcrowded, though. I mean, you agree to that, or you admit that, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're crowded.
Oh, yeah, overcrowded. Overcrowded. Okay, overcrowded.
Yeah.
How do we resolve that?
Well, I think crowding, the easiest way to look at it, and by easy, I don't mean that it's not the right way of looking at it, but if you look at crime in Nebraska, you look at our sentencing laws, and you look at the seriousness of the crimes that are committed, the numbers just come out, regardless of the sentencing, that individuals who commit serious crimes are going to go to prison. And then how long they stay there is dependent upon sentencing laws.
But it's also dependent in many cases, is it not, on the Board of Pardons?
Well, the Board of Pardons, pardon people generally that have gone crime-free for a long time, or people that have served a considerable amount of time serving a life sentence, and then they can commute the life sentence into a term of years, and that gives a person a parole eligibility date.
But maybe then just a run-of-the-mill crime. Let's say I'm sentenced to 5 to 10 years.
Right.
After 2.5 years, I could be paroled on good time, right?
Right.
So on a 5 to 10 sentence, I do 2.5 years.
Right.
Do I have to go before the parole board, or is that a thing that the Department of Corrections decides? How does that happen?
No, that's decided by the parole board.
Okay.
And then your top number is 5 years. So in essence, you're doing 2.5 to 5 years with good time. So you discharge after 5 years unless you lose good time that extends your stay.
Then why not say your sentence is 2.5 to 5 as opposed to 5 to 10?
That's interesting. Well, because it can be extended. I mean, we've had rarely that somebody loses all their good time. But also, with a year of good behavior, they can earn their good time back. So it's really good to have that, for the control of the institution. Gives the inmate hope. And then since we're a paroling state, they can have up to, 2.5 years on parole.
Now you say good time. I mean, I assume that means basically, not shiving anybody,
right.
Or I'm going off the movies and everything. Getting into fights and stuff like that. Are there other things for good time too that go into effect? I mean, in other words, like working in the cafeteria or things like that are all part of good time, or
not in Nebraska. A lot of states have that, and the legislatures put those in intentionally to reduce their prison population. But that hasn't happened in Nebraska. But we do give day-for-day good time. So when you walk in the door, you have the good time, and it's yours to lose.
Okay. So they assume, when you go in, you're going to have the good time. You'll be out in half, whatever the sentence is.
Right. Yes.
Until you prove otherwise.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
And a lot of that. So a lot of people wonder, well, why are there so many people in prison that are parole eligible? Well, for example, robbery carries 3 to 50. Okay, so if a judge gives 50 years, then you take the statutory minimum, cut that in half. So half of 3 years becomes your parole eligibility date, but your release date isn't for 25 years. So, it would be difficult for the parole board and also for the inmate to serve that many years on parole and to behave well.
So they would have to be on parole. Let's say they get out in 3 years.
Right.
They have to be on parole until 22 years later, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Does the parole board, politically, they don't want to be the one to let Nico Jenkins out. And as a matter of fact, you were in charge of the prisons when Nico was released.
Right.
Right? And people look back and say, well, why was he released? But
no, he wasn't released on parole.
No, he was released. He had done his time.
Yeah, his time expired. And, I think a lot of people believe that he was paroled, but he was not paroled. He discharged.
Yeah. Now, you knew him,
yes.
Right? So you knew that he had all these issues. Is there anything that you could do to say, he's done his time, but maybe he shouldn't be allowed back into the general population?
Well, you brought up a question that never made its way into the media during that time. So we started about 6 months or so before he was to be released, and I got a hold of the mental health staff. Said, let's make this a model for how, we can discharge somebody that is too much to be on the yard, but is going to go into free society. And so he was working with mental health staff. We had a parole officer that came in and started working with him months ahead of time. So there were a lot of preparatory things that we did that was never reported. It appeared, because that's how it was portrayed, that he just walked out of high security. And to the extent that that's true, it was conditioned by the fact that he was seen frequently by mental health staff, medical staff, the parole officer that worked with him the last several months. And so it would be a better outcome if you could step somebody down from high security, because after all, they're going to be in the community. And so it's pretty rare that somebody discharges out of high security. And I know across the country and in Nebraska, they're working extremely well to try to not let that happen. But at the same time, for some people, it just has to happen that way.
Because you really never know what's going to happen once you let them out into society, right?
Right.
I mean, whether it be Nico Jenkins or anybody else.
No, you don't know. So everything about corrections and law enforcement, for that matter, is risk-based. You're just calculating what the risks are be. And so now, as we go by, research is introduced into helping you determine through classification systems what that risk is, and that's based on research. So research-based classification is becoming more and more prevalent. It's extremely important. That way you can measure the probabilities, and then you can reduce that risk. So you have two factors. One is dynamic, and the other one is just what it is, right? And so one doesn't change, and that is the fact that somebody committed these crimes and when they committed the crimes or they escaped and so forth. So that's a risk factor. But the other is dynamic, and that's why you want to have research-based classification and programs so that you can address those dynamic factors. And some of those dynamic factors would be anger control, substance abuse, education, and so forth. So those programs address those risks that are dynamic, because the other ones just don't go away. They're there, and but if you can mitigate that, then the parole board has a good idea as to whether or not this person is a good risk to go into society.
You bring up a point that I think that maybe the average citizen doesn't know. Right. About, you say, there are organizations and groups in there to help people with things such as drug and alcohol addiction, anger management, teaching them some basic life skills.
Yes.
that are in the prison that is available to the prisoners if they want it.
Yes.
I was involved with a group called Circle of Concerned Lifers.
Right.
Which is basically a group of prisoners that are probably never getting out.
Right.
But at the same time, they're working with prisoners that are going to get out to help them deal with things like anger issues and help them deal with, how do you balance a checkbook and how do you, deal with life outside of prison. Mm-hmm. I tell the story that when I got involved with the Circle of Concerned Lifers, when Mr. Frakes was in charge. They were doing a program where they were basically using, they found that a lot of the same skills that gang members use, like drug dealers, inventory management, managing your underlings, all this, a lot of the same skills that gang members used could actually be used in a business environment. So they were trying to teach business skills so that when these people came back out, they wouldn't be, recidivism. There would be no recidivism. And so I went on a media tour, and that's where I met some of these people. And like I said, a lot of them, and I could mention some names, and you would know them. A lot of them, I'd have no problem bringing to my family's house and say, "Hey, let's have a meal." But then one day, after volunteering for 2 years, I just bored and did a Google search and saw what they were in for. And what they were in for, what they did when they were 20, is not the person that they were now in their 50s or older that I'd met. What is in the prison system to help them make that change, to actually to be able to, I guess, just adapt to a more civilized way of life behind bars?
Yes. Well, the programs you mentioned,
and
age, they get older and they get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and then they decide not to come back. And when they, so the opportunities they have are great, whether it be when they're young or when they're old, especially in Nebraska. We always need more resources. We need more reentry. But what we have is really good. And so anyhow, they need to engage. It's like anything. If you go to a scary movie and you decide you don't want to be scared, you're not going to be scared. If you go to a program and decide you don't want to change, you're not going to change. And so we're really good at offering, I think, those opportunities. But there's an element about the inmate or the person, in the justice system to make that decision to change.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit now about what happens once they get out.
Okay.
Because, you don't want them going back in. You want them to say, look, you made a mistake. Good luck to you. What type of skills can they learn in there to help them on the outside? And what can the average business person in that do to take a risk on these people? I mean, because it's a very risky thing. If I'm an employer and I see somebody as a felon and they've just come out of the prison system, it's risky for me to take a chance on them.
Well, you can measure that risk, okay? So there's 5 dimensions that are needed for reentry. And when you think about them, it applies to other populations as well. First one is you got to have stable housing. If you're couch surfing, you're never going to have your feet on the ground. Mm-hmm. The second thing you need is a job. You got to have some income. Some people go to school and maybe find some financial aid, but you got to have a job. Third one is you got to have supportive relationships. Supportive relationships does not necessarily mean your family, okay? There's outstanding families of people that are incarcerated, but that's not always the case. The next thing you need is substance abuse to address that. And then the last is mental health. And a lot of the mental health is driven by substance abuse. But those are 5 stabilizing factors. So if you're an employer and you're looking at somebody coming out of prison and they're hitting on all those 5 cylinders, then the risk is gone down considerably that person's not going to be a good employee.
You mentioned drug and alcohol abuse and also mental health.
Right.
2 of the main factors.
Yes.
I mean, I've said, politicians get elected by saying, I'm going to be tough on crime and I'm not going to raise taxes.
Right.
They don't get elected saying, I'm going to offer more mental health programs for people.
Right.
Right? So how do we go to get the mental health programs so that these people don't end up in the in the prison situation to begin with?
Yes.
How do you sell that idea to the legislature? How do you sell that idea to the governors and that to get people to understand that maybe you can stop them from going into prison in the first place if you get rid of the drug and alcohol issues and the other problems, the anger issues and that might have brought them in there.
Yeah, it's well, first of all, as I indicated earlier, that substance abuse really drives a lot of the mental health issues. Mm-hmm. And so that has to be addressed. We talk about mental health, but we're really talking about the outcome, not the beginning of it. And so addressing drug abuse, places, jurisdictions, I apologize, came from California and they had a little smoke there. So we have to address those issues.
So we do need to address those issues. Once they're in the prison, though, once they're behind bars, they can still get the drugs and alcohol, can't they?
Well, they're available like they are in society and so forth, but hopefully not readily available. Yeah. We did a lot of drug testing and interventions and that type of thing. And so, and I'm sure it continues on now, but there are incidences, but I don't think it's commonplace to have. There's probably more drugs in there than I would think as a prison warden. Okay. Yeah. When probably there's probably less than most people would think.
How often do you go into the cells and search them to look for contraband?
Every day, every shift.
Really?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Not every cell, obviously.
Okay.
And then there are room checks, and that it's really important the staff get out and about in a correctional institution and to interact with the inmates, and they learn a lot of information. The old days, I'm sure they use snitches, but you don't need that in a correctional institution that's modern, has unit management where you have, the staff placed right on the housing unit to get to know the inmate. That's the security.
You want to take a sip of water?
Oh, yeah, I think I will.
Take a sip of water, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I was told the older guards, know how to diffuse any problems.
Right.
Whereas the younger guards, sometimes they got the testosterone growing and that, and if there's a problem, they want to maybe bust a head or something. Whereas the older guards, they understand they work with the prisoners to diffuse the problems. Right?
Yes.
Is that true?
Yeah. That's very true. And so training is intended to replace your natural tendencies. This isn't high school, as I tell our new officers and so forth. And so training can replace those instincts you might have grown up with, and hopefully with a more professional way of approaching the inmates. But really, the experience and holding on to that experience at a correctional setting, which is true of law enforcement, is golden. Because people that have been around for a while, do their job, they can just look at an inmate. The inmate knows, oh, okay, I better not be doing that. And you don't get that when you're young and you haven't quite learned how to communicate. So, or at least in the correctional environment.
Mm-hmm. Like I said at the beginning, you've been doing this for 37 years. You're with the Nebraska State prison system. In those years, how have the prisoners, or have they changed from what it was like when you first started out as a young guy?
Yeah.
Now, 50 years later, the prisoners coming in today, are they tougher? Are they meaner? Are they more drug and alcohol issues, or is it basically the same sort of thing, just different generations?
Well, when I first started at our dormitory, you could put, if you're an inmate, and they will tell you this, you could put your watch down, you could put down, back then you could have cigarettes, you could put down your lighter, you could put down those things. Go take a shower when you come back, they're there. And it's changed. So as they call it politics in California, and we call it gang activities here. But whatever you call it is that what happens is when people join a gang, they take on the grudges of 10 other people, or whatever number you have in the grudges. So if they don't like this guy and this guy, this guy and this guy, now you're supposed to not like those individuals as well. And so that changes dynamics. In larger states, we don't have this in Nebraska to that extent. You have green lighters, people that when a gang member sees them, their job is to beat them down. Beat them down until the officers or the deputies stop you. That's a certain meanness driven by gangs or politics that was absent when I started decades ago.
Well, when you say, okay, here it's gangs and in California it's politics,
right?
Is that why don't they call it gangs in California? Is that a political thing? Is that?
It's an inmate thing.
Oh, it's an inmate thing. Okay, so it's not like it's not like some liberals saying,
no.
we don't like the term gang.
No, it's not that.
No.
I never thought about that, Tom. Thanks for telling me.
So the inmates have called it a political thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the inmate, besides the name changes, is there a difference between a Nebraska inmate and a California inmate?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and also in California, I'm working in the jail system, which is different from most of my years being in the prison system. Where you can have a more stability of your population. You have, in that case, unit management rather than direct supervision in the jails. So there's a lot of differences logistically. We have more modern facilities in Nebraska and antiquated facilities in much of California. So there are differences that. Also, the extent of the gangs and the generations of gang members goes deep and wide in other states, more populous states. In Nebraska, we have the gang activities, and it's not good, and we have them in the prisons, but it's not as entrenched as it is in other states and in other cities.
Just for people that don't know, the difference between jails and prisons.
Yes.
What is the difference?
Well, jails are short-term, generally. And they could be there quite a while if they're fighting their case. But generally over a year, at least in Nebraska, you go to prison. Mm-hmm. And it's run by the state rather than by the county.
And here in Douglas County, going back to the mental health issue, the number one mental health provider in Douglas County is the Douglas County Jail.
Right. Yeah.
Which makes no sense to me whatsoever.
The number one the largest mental health institution in the world is where I work, the Los Angeles County Jail.
Really?
Yeah, they have 2,000 inpatient inmates, but the mental health services they get are certainly not to the extent that they need. And that's why building a mental health institution for the inmates is the more desirable way to go.
What is the biggest misconception that an average citizen would have about prisons, or maybe jails too, but what it's like behind bars versus what it's really like behind bars?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I always felt comfortable inside the institutions. Now, an uneasy comfortableness, because you always have to, be aware of your surroundings and your interactions and have backup, have your radio, those types of things. But if the most powerful thing you have is your ability to communicate. And if you can communicate effectively with the inmates, and the other thing is you have to make certain that you don't offend them. By that, they're going to take offense at things. When you tell them bad news in the nicest way, it's not always going to be well received.
Hey, you're going to be in for another 5 years.
Yeah.
You say it with a smile, and it still doesn't go over any better, does it?
Yeah, the basketball game starts at 7. I mean, you just have to be aware because we have all the things we have. We have houses and lives and so forth. They don't have that. Okay. All they have is their respect, or what their perception of self-respect is. So you have to understand and not front people off, especially in front of other inmates.
Now, you say when you were like the uneasiness that you would have when you're in the yard, do you get, when you were in charge, when you were the top dog, do you get respect because of that, or do you have a target on your back because of that?
Oh, no, I think throughout my career, no matter what job I had, hopefully I had respect. And you get respect not based on the job you have, but how effectively you can communicate with them. And it's really hard being a correction officer every day because you don't have the rank and you're dealing with them every day. And so you have to understand that, when they're really nice to me, that isn't always the case with the line staff that, that have to enforce rules and give bad news.
Yeah, the whole system, it just amazes me. There's so many different aspects to it. Mm-hmm. About you can do a really bad thing, but if you got a really good lawyer, you can avoid the prison, as opposed to we'll say OJ for instance, right? Uh-huh. You're a good lawyer, you avoid the system, whereas any other person with that same evidence probably would have wound up going to prison.
Well, I can't speak for other states, but I don't think that's quite the case in Nebraska.
Uh-huh.
We have a fair criminal justice system. We have excellent defense attorneys and prosecutors. And also, we have good police. They gather the evidence and so forth. And so, there's something about representation, but it's funny. Friends of mine have said, if we got arrested and we were guilty, we'd give away all our money so we can get a public defender because they're that good. They know the system. And so even if you get a public defender, that doesn't mean you don't have a good attorney. In fact, in Douglas County, I think it means you probably have a better attorney because he or she knows the system. They know how the evidence is weighed. They know how to negotiate deals and so forth, as you weigh the evidence and so forth. So that may be true elsewhere, but I don't think it's here in my home state.
95% of the inmates might say, I'm innocent, I didn't do it, right? Once they're behind bars.
Yeah.
In reality, from your perspective, how are there innocent people behind bars?
I don't know how they got there in Nebraska.
Okay.
I mean, people getting out because they weren't guilty is pretty rare.
Yeah.
There was a situation down in Beatrice, I think with Beatrice 5. I'm hard-pressed to think of any other situation. I think we have a very fair system because we have good defense attorneys, because we have prosecutors that are not mean-spirited and are reasonable. They weigh the evidence. They understand the evidence. They present the evidence. And I think the outcome is that if you're locked up in Nebraska, you probably did it.
Plus, with the technology now, both DNA and cameras everywhere,
Right.
it's probably a lot easier to prove your cases or to prove your innocence than it might have been, 15, 20 years ago.
Well, look at the footprint that people lay with social media.
Yeah.
So when it comes to trouble time, you left a lot out there.
Do the prisoners have access to computers once they're behind bars?
Oh, they do, but not to the internet.
Okay.
Right. And if they are on the internet, like in the law library, it's it's a curtain around it.
Okay, so
yeah.
So they do, but they can't really reach out and get to people or anything like that through the internet, right? I mean, so
well, it's not designed to do that. So okay. When they break through it, hopefully it's just a rare occasion.
Once somebody's behind bars, do the family members and friends tend to keep in touch, or are they pretty much they keep in touch for the first week, month, year, and then just leave the person in there to rot?
Well, so if you immerse yourself in the criminal world, the people you're surrounded by are criminals as well. And if you're not out there, they forget you. We tell the inmate that. How many of your homeboys are coming to see you? Well, none. You know why? Because they forgot about you. Your family's different. Your family will come see you. Your parents or your guardians or significant others are really supportive. And in the research I've seen that came out of Minnesota, that if you're visited by your ex-wife, your chances of reoffending tend to be higher because you're looking back instead of forward. Whereas if your parents come in and you're looking forward, then your recidivism goes down a bit.
Oh, okay. So if your ex-wife comes, you're looking back.
You're probably looking back. Now, there could be children involved with that.
Sure.
Good reason that you're going to have your ex out. But in general, if you focus backwards, you're not going to make it. You got to focus forward.
So if a girlfriend shows up, that's a good thing. But if the ex-wife shows up, it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't want to speak ill of ex-wives. But
No.
But I think the overall effect is you need to look forward. You need to have. That's where, remember, I was naming the 5 supportive relationships. Yeah. People that truly are interested in you and you succeeding. Not just people, but people who are interested in you, mentors. Miss Mickles and Miss Stennis Williams and so forth. These are people in our community that are really helping people. Just examples of it that are to look forward, and that's what you need in your life is people like them.
What about conjugal visits? Do those happen, or is that if you get enough good time, you get to have the girlfriend come in to visit you for a while, or is that just sort of like a myth that's out there? There's
a few states. I know Washington used to, and I don't know if they do now. Mississippi used to, and I don't know if they do that now. But that's more for an incentive because they happen so rare. They're more of a reward than the way to really get people to communicate. What we do in Nebraska is furloughs. And furloughs when they get into a community setting or for a program activity, and which I think is more powerful than having conjugal visits.
I'm guessing the prisoners might disagree with you on that, but
yeah, that would be pretty widespread.
And personally, I've said this before, where if God forbid I ever got in a situation where I had murdered somebody, I'd want to do the death sentence because the idea of being behind bars the rest of my life like that would be a worse penalty for me than death. I can't imagine what that must be like knowing that you're never getting out.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I can help you picture that.
No, I'm not.
Would you turn around and No, what happens, you can motivate inmates that know they're never going to get out. And I'll give you an example of that. We started what's called medical porters. And medical porters assist the nurses. So instead of having 3 nurses to turn a person over in bed and that type of thing, you only need 1, and then you have a couple of well-trained inmate porters and so forth. Well, we interviewed one person, and said, well, why do you want to be a medical porter? He says, well, I'm going to die here. And I'm going to get old here, and I'm going to get feeble, and I'm going to need help. And I want to be part of a program that's going to assist me at the end of my life. And so, and then amenities and, are really important to inmates, to have good visits, to have good programs. They become associated with, religion and other things, positive things that are in the prison. And so there's really positive things in the prison in Nebraska. You just got to seek them out.
Yeah, and that probably goes again with the idea of what the perception is versus the reality.
Right.
There are good success stories coming out of the state pens, but you end up hearing about the Nico Jenkins of the world, or the habitual criminals, more than you would for some guy that does their time, then goes out and raises a family and gets a decent job and lives a peaceful life.
Right. I was one time at a St. Patrick's Day in an establishment, and a gentleman came up and says, hey, I need to get a picture with you. And here's my wife and here's my children. I want to get a picture with you. And I'm like, what's this about? He says, I did 8 years with you. I did 8 years in the penitentiary, and you were there. And I participated in every program you had. Went into industries, plate factory. He went to into education. He did everything. He says, I tapped every resource that you have. I'm out now, and I've been out for several years. I have a family. I have a job. In fact, I started a business, and I'm doing great, and I want to thank you. And so, those are not the stories that, make it out there like they should.
And there are probably a lot more of those that you just don't even know about.
Oh, yeah.
They've never seen you, or they've never had that opportunity to tell you that.
Right.
But a lot of others that have.
Well, when I see them when they get out, they're always glad to see me, because as long as you don't treat them with an attitude, you can carry out discipline the way you do. And they all want to tell you how well they're doing. They want to introduce you to their mom and their kids. So,
before we wrap this up, let's talk a little bit. I mean, we've been focusing pretty much on the male population.
Right.
But there's a growing female prison population, isn't there?
Right. Yes, it's growing.
More and more women are getting involved or are being convicted of crimes.
Yes.
What type of crimes are they being convicted of, and why do you see the growth in female incarceration?
Yeah, I really can't say without looking at the statistics, but I know there's women commit crimes that men don't commit. And you never read about a woman going in and robbing a bank. They usually come out of emotional situations, and they're very relationship based. The male population, they want to know you're going to be fair. The female population tends to want to make sure that you understand. So everything about them is relationship and emotional based, and there's usually a male involved. And so a lot of the treatment that we have, what's woven in there, is dependency issues. Why are you dependent on this person? And the thing is that it's really hard for women that both in society and people that are in prison when they get out. So you're with a male, he's abusing you, but you have 3 children. You don't want to report him because he's the support system. You're not thinking about yourself so much. You're thinking about your 3 children. Mm-hmm. So they get into those situations, and some crimes arise out of that. When they go to prison, males don't come and see them. In fact, the pass clerk that we generally have in York is a female because so many females come to visit females. But it's the same in a male prison because so many of the females come visit the male inmate. So turnaround is not fair play,
Yeah, so is it just that on average, the male personality, generally speaking, wouldn't go to visit as much as women do, right? Women do tend to be more nurturing, I guess, than men. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. What haven't I brought up that you'd like people to know about? The prison system going forward, where we're going to be, as now, as more and more people are getting locked up and prisons are overcrowded. Where are we going to be? How are things going to get better?
Well, I'm sure in the future things are going to develop in a good way. As technology comes in and better detection, but and it's not we're doomed, but there is going to be crime in our society, and it needs to be dealt with. And I'm not a lock 'em up person, but incarceration does serve a purpose.
Yeah.
And I've even had inmates say, you saved my life. Well, I didn't save it. The police officer did. Okay. The judge did. But they need a break in their lifestyle. If somebody's out of control and they're not deterred by lower levels, they need to go to prison. But when they come to prison, the day they come in the Nebraska prison system, you start working with them on reentry, because it starts the day you get there. And everything they do, looking forward again, needs to be towards that end. We had Tom Osborne come in and speak to the inmates one time. He says, well, I don't know a lot about prison work, but I do know you need to have a change of heart. And how you can lead them to have that change of heart is golden if you can do it. And the people I mentioned can do that in a reentry situation. So,
Bob, I appreciate you sharing the stories and giving some insight into what it's like in a world that hopefully none of us ever have to experience.
Right.
Yeah. One last question. The amount of people that are behind bars in prison, not the county jail, but in prison for drug offenses, possession, more so than selling. I mean, if somebody's busted trying to sell 50 pounds of meth, that's different than somebody that might have a pound of pot in their house, right? How many people are in on relatively minor drug crimes?
Few. So the people that are doing time, it was probably a serious drug offense, and that was they committed several offenses. They just picked one out to prosecute them as the lead crime that they're going to prosecute. But you have to, for drug possession, you have to work really hard to get into prison. There's a lot of stops along the way, and when you go through those stops, or it's the more serious drug possession with the intent to sell, that'll get you there. But the days of somebody who's a user in prison, those days are long gone.
All right. Bob, appreciate your time.
Okay.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Make sure you keep on joining us. Tell your friends about the Becca's Talking podcast. Share it, spread the word, and join us every week, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. There's a new podcast up there. We've got some great guests coming up along the way. So please make sure you join us. And if you have an idea for a guest, let me know. Let me know, and maybe we might have them on here to try to make some sense out of this crazy world. Till next time, bye, y'all.